Hey everyone, welcome back to Northside Baseball. Ethan and Brandon here to discuss more Cubs news, some positive news this time around. Obviously, it's been a really nice start to the season for the Cubs overall, minus some injuries. And the Cubs at the time of this recording just beat the Dodgers in a series over the weekend, which was on the road, which is a really positive development. Obviously, they had that blowout win on Saturday, and then they had a really nice win on Sunday Night Baseball on Sunday. So let's talk about the series over the weekend, Ethan. And I think you probably want to begin with that 16-0 blowout that happened.
Yeah, what a crazy time, really. I mean, I always want to shout out the Dodgers being, the winners of the World Series last year. And then again, we got smoked in Japan. However, it feels like we really did redeem ourselves 16-0. And I really do want to talk about very quickly because I just find it extremely funny. When, the Dodgers kind of threw up their hands in the air and said, look, we're not coming back from this. And they put an infielder on the mound. I think that's always fun to see. They put Miguel Rojas on the field. He starts impersonating Roki Sasaki's pitching style. He has Roki Sasaki's glove in hand. I think that's always just so interesting. It was a game that you just did not want to miss. Brandon, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I definitely have a thought about Ben Brown's performance because I think that's going really underrated. But I will say, I mean, obviously it was nice. It was a 2-0 game going into the seventh inning, and so I was sort of like, all right, like let's. Obviously, we know how the bullpen's been this year, so I'm kind of like, all right, let's get a few insurance runs, and then all of a sudden it was 16-0. I'm like, all right, I guess that's enough. But I mean, yeah, it's just great to see that, obviously, again, it's a lot of the offense came against some of those position players on the mound. So it's not all exactly like, we're going up against the best pitchers in the world here, but it's still a really positive development. That the offense, is still being, is able to produce like this. The run differential for the Cubs has been really strong this year. And it's just, it's great to see that everyone in the lineup, I believe, had a hit besides maybe Matt Shaw, who I think only had like a pinch hit appearance. So it's a really positive development, that guys are building off each other's at bats, and the offense is producing as a whole. But the performance I really want to shout out, which sort of gets lost when you put up 16 runs, is the starting pitcher and Ben Brown, who has been a bit maligned to start this season. What a performance! The Dodgers are the best lineup in baseball. We all know this. Six shutout innings, five strikeouts, no walks. That is as good of a start, I think, as anyone on the Cubs has had this year. And it's just, again, if the Cubs are going to be competitive now without Justin Steele, which we've just talked about in another video, a guy like Ben Brown's going to have to step up. He's going to have to really develop and mature on the fly. And so if you get performances like this from him consistently, the outlook looks a lot more positive.
Yeah, I mean, in 2024, it was really nice because Brandon and I were lucky enough during if go back a while ago to when we did an in-person video during the Mets game, we saw Shota Imanaga play, and then the next game, Ben Brown came out and played, which again, he delivered a pretty stellar performance. Again, he was still fresh onto the team, replacing Justin Steele during a minor injury. Now, Justin Steele has this major injury that's going to take him out for a while, but we talked about that in another video. So again, it's nothing to bat an eye out. It's bat an eye about, excuse me. And it's great to see that Ben Brown is doing so well. Am I surprised about it? Absolutely not. He was great in 2024, and I think there's only going to be improvements every year. I'm going to knock on wood that he doesn't get an injury, because it just feels like there's still a curse maybe on the Cubs. But I'm going to chalk up the win, that we got against the Dodgers as a pretty big thing here, not only for Ben Brown but just our team overall. And again, I think the other thing to note, and Brandon, you'll probably agree with me, is again, part of it is the fact that we already went up against them in Japan. It was a learning experience, and now going up against them on their home turf. I'm gonna read this here. Um, the Cubs won the game 16-0, and it was the worst home shutout loss in franchise history for the Dodgers. So I'm gonna, let's shout out the Cubs right there, baby. That's pretty good. Like, come on, like we're putting the shame to the best team in the MLB right now.
Yeah, no, it's again, we spoke about it last month in spring training, how this is a really brutal part of the schedule early in the season, and the Cubs are holding their own. I do want to talk about that Sunday win really quickly, where Colin Ray stepped up, had a pretty solid performance in 4 innings, and then the bullpen, which look, I have been laying into the bullpen all offseason, but clap it up for the bullpen. Pretty much everyone besides Caleb Thielbar had an unbelievable performance, filling over those last 5 innings. I think Ethan Roberts, Julian Merriweather, Porter Hodge, and Ryan Presley were the last four guys out of the bullpen, and they combined to pitch like 4 or 5 no-hit innings. That's really impressive in a close game against the Dodgers. So again, not everything's going to be perfect right now. Justin Steele's injured. There's guys that are, it's early in the season. Pete Crow Armstrong's really hot right now after being really cold for a few weeks. So it's just these things are going to fluctuate, but it's really nice to see that the Cubs can compete with team, even in a short series, in a team like the Dodgers, or the Padres, who they're, playing right now. And so it's a positive development, and it's again, especially this early in the season, it should give this group a lot of confidence that like, hey, like we can compete with, the National League's best, and we have a chance at the pennant here.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that we make it to a wild card slot this year. Again, we're only in the first month of the season.
Yeah.
We're speaking this so early on, but I think the thing that we miss so often is that we're so close. We're chomping at the bit to get to that wild card slot at this point. And again, I'm seeing only green flags. Brandon, you'll probably agree with me, but then again, you're way more of a sports journalist than I am, so you're also probably seeing way more chinks in the armor. But I'm very hopeful for the Cubs to get to the wild card slot this year.
Yeah, I would wager the NL Central, winning the division is probably their path. But you're right. I mean, it's the idea. The Cubs haven't made the playoffs in 5 years. 2020 was the last time they did it, and that they obviously that was a short season. They got swept by the Marlins. It wasn't a great year, but regard. I do think the NL Central is their best path. I think they're clearly the best team in the division right now. But regardless of how they do it, I think what matters is not, it'll be nice if the Cubs make the playoffs, but if they get swept in the first round, who really cares? I think it's really nice to know that right now, as this team is built, as they're getting momentum early in the season, when they get to the playoffs, they're going to be able to compete. They're going to win some games. They might be able to advance, hopefully to maybe all the way to the NLCS or even the World Series. So that's what I'm, taking away from all this stuff, even as, injuries and stuff is piling up. But as always, we'd love to hear you guys' comments. How do you feel about this start to the season? Are you encouraged by what you're seeing from, the starting rotation in the lineup? It was the bullpen's performance in that Sunday game really encouraging to you. Just tell us what you're feeling, and we're happy to respond and always looking at those comments.